All right, it is 5:15 on Monday, October 24th, 2022, and this meeting of the Human Rights Commission is now in session. First up on our agenda, we need to welcome our new student commissioner, Samuel Chalakov. Chalakov, sorry about that. Do you want to introduce yourself at all?
My name is Sam Chalakov. I am 15 years old. I live here in New Ulm, Minnesota, and I am a sophomore at New Ulm High School.
Welcome, Sam. We love having a student out here. This is our first time having a student commissioner, so if you have any friends or if anyone else knows any other high school kids from any of the high schools, we have one more opening for a student commissioner. So welcome and feel free to ask questions or jump in if you need to.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have approval from our last meeting minutes. Those are on your agenda here. Do we have any questions or discussion surrounding last month's minutes? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to our budget report. Please take note of the budget. So we also are going to need to kind of go before the city council at the next city council meeting. If anyone wants to volunteer, otherwise I'll probably get stuck going, but we need to go and kind of justify our budget and explain to them where the money's going. So you'll see here we have some money that went for our speaker fees, which we have coming up this week. Human Rights Award, our poster and essay contest. So all of that came out of our budget. Bavarian Blast, the events that we did. So we have about 50% of our budget left, although I believe that we still, Wendy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we still do owe additional speaker fees.
I believe we do, but I'm not 100% on that. I'd have to check.
Okay, maybe I'll need to check with Lisa and see, because I believe that we have additional fees for the upcoming trainings.
Yeah, I would have to check. I'm not sure.
Okay, I'll check with Lisa and see if there are additional speaker fees or if it was just that one speaker fee, but do we have any questions on the budget report? I don't believe that's an action item. If you look at 4.2, this is the letter that we got from the, I believe the city council is who this is before. So we need to go to the next meeting. A representative needs to go to their next meeting and kind of explain our budget. We did request $8,500, and preliminary it has been approved for $6,050. So if anyone wants to volunteer, otherwise I will plan on going and kind of explaining on November 1st what we do with our funds and explain what we need funds for. Don't all volunteer at once? No? All right. So then I will
I have a
attend.
question.
Yes?
Are we going to, appeal for our original request?
I guess that's a discussion we can have. I don't know.
Or are we okay with what they're
The way that
approving?
I'm looking at this letter, it sounds to me like budgets are being cut across the board, which if that's the case, that seems fair that all commissions would take a budget cut. I don't know if that's something that I can ask at this next meeting.
How does it compare to our previous budget?
I believe our previous budget was $8,500, and that's why we requested the same. Is that right?
We
you guys?
requested the same from the year
Did we?
prior,
Oh.
but it was
I
an
believe so.
increase. We did ask for an increase, but I'm not sure what year that took place.
Because when I look at, when we look at our budget report,
Mhm.
at the top it says 6,050. But that's before I was on the commission, so I'm not sure what was asked for and what was approved, but is that like our starting balance for 2022?
That's a good question. I thought that we had decided, let me clarify, I'll look back in the notes and clarify why, because I don't believe this was an increase, but possibly it was.
I'm trusting my memory, so.
I thought it was
Good
the
thing to
same, but, so what are our thoughts? What do we want me to request at that next meeting, I guess, is the question. Are we okay with what they're offering, the 6,050? Do we want to try to appeal for that 8,500? What do we think?
Well, I'm kind of thinking it might be hard to get more since we have what, like 2 months of our budget left, and as of today, we're sitting with still 50%.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
So I'm kind of thinking if we have 50% now,
I
even if we
wonder-
have to spend this additional speaker fees, that would still leave us with a fair amount.
I believe the speaker fees, so I'm looking on here, the speaker fees were 500. So if it's 500 per session, then it would be
I know it
another
wasn't
15.
500 total.
So it would be
And-
more.
Yeah.
So I think
I
that
just
there
don't know how much
is,
more.
so that would be about half, so we'd be looking at about 25% of our budget left, I believe. So with that being earmarked, we're looking at about 25%.
And we also still have the Human Rights Award.
That's true. So I do think we are gonna eat through that budget by the end of the year, so. But if it was only 6,050,
Well, if we ask for more, how does that hurt us? Like, we would still.
I don't
mean,
know
they're
that
not
it
gonna
hurts
Give us
us.
less than the 6,050, right? So I would say, why don't we ask? If we don't get it, we don't get it. And then we just
Okay.
modify like our prizes or whatever we're doing with the next fiscal year.
so are you suggesting that we would try to appeal for that 8,500?
I think we should. I mean,
Okay.
I don't think it's going to hurt anything, right? I mean, why wouldn't we try?
I think as long as you explain what is being used up by the end of the year, it would probably make them more inclined to offer more, approve more.
Yeah, definitely itemize everything that we've used it for and
Yep.
show that it was worthwhile and that we can continue with that. We can't continue with the things that we're doing without it.
Yep. Is there further discussion on this? Otherwise, I think we probably should have a motion for what we would like me to present on November 1st. Do we have a motion to attempt to appeal for the 8,500?
I make a motion that you should appeal for the 8,500 at the next city council meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any other discussion surrounding that? All right, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. All right, moving on to our events committee report. So the deadline for the Human Rights Award, the deadline to submit nominations was October 14th. We have 2 nominations. We have the Prism Group at New Ulm High School. And then we have Josie Ringhofer. Oh. So I guess I don't remember how the events committee did this last year for there was only 1 nomination, so I don't believe that there was
Right.
any sort of discussion around it. There was only 1 nomination. So we have 2 nominations. So events committee, how would you guys like to handle selecting a winner?
We usually put it up to votes with other commissioners. So
Okay. Is that something that we as commissioners feel comfortable voting on at this time?
Well, I would abstain. And then remind me if, in the past, if we've done it publicly. So that, because to make an announcement, it would be announced before the
So it
person would
maybe
know
need-
it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Maybe
would
I'll
it-
talk to Lisa and I'll have
Yeah.
Lisa send out an email
Yeah.
asking for which candidate we would prefer, or which nomination we would prefer.
Mhm.
And then we'll go from there, because you're right, because then it would be an announcement at the next meeting.
Oh,
We'll
sure,
announce
so
the
we would
winner.
do like an email ballot
Yes.
Yeah.
is basically what
Right.
we're saying.
Lisa.
And then we can announce it
At the next
officially
meeting,
at-
we will announce the winner. So, So everyone take some time to look over these. Sam, I guess I need to check. I don't know if we ever decided if student commissioners would have a vote. I feel like, I guess I don't know what the,
Did we decide?
I don't know. I'll check with Lisa and see about that. So I don't know how that works exactly. This is new to us too, but we'll figure it out. Don't worry. Okay, any other discussion from the events committee at this time? No? All right, moving on to our education committee, we have a potential event hosted by Julia Larkin Spies. And I think Wendy, you were going to share a little more information. You know about this?
Yes, Julie Larkin Spees.
Spies, sorry.
So she is, she's an educator in Mankato. She's a former dean of Dakota Meadows Middle School, and she does a presentation for educators and others about safe spaces and the necessity and the kind of the research behind why they're important. So she has offered to do a presentation in New Ulm if we are willing to get that going. She would waive her fee for us. She's been kind of keeping up on current events in our town and feels that it would be worth her while to donate that to us. So she, I'm just going to read this off for here. Typically, her presentations are an hour, but she can knock it down to 45 minutes if need be to kind of make it fit any time parameters we have. So the title is Beyond Safe Spaces, Created Inclusive Schools for LGBTQ plus students and their families. Kind of the really short version of what it is about is learning about, discussing, and looking at research-based approaches to building a culture of inclusion for LGBTQ plus students, their peers, and their families. And she is an excellent presenter. She's, she'll hold your attention. She'll be willing to answer questions and to.
Do we know if there would be CEUs associated with this? 'Cause I think that'd be a good question that,
Yeah,
educators
there
would wanna
typically
know.
has been for when she's
Okay.
presented in the past. Yeah.
So would this be something we're thinking of that it would be like open to the public or geared to
That's
the
what
schools?
well, that's what we would need to decide what we would want to do. She could present here, like similar to what we did with the CRT. We could do something similar to what we're doing with the Diversity Council and open it up to more, which I think, I mean, if I was to vote one way or the other, that's what I would vote for. But
well, I
can
think,
leave
and
it
if
to
you're
you.
looking at 45 minutes to an hour,
That's a long
that
time
would be
for the-
very long to do, like, tied on to a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're looking at CEUs and stuff and people don't want to necessarily be a part of the rest of the meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we were going to host something like that, we should look at similar
Sure.
to that.
And it wouldn't be an extra expense for us then, especially
Well,
if we do it at the community.
location maybe would be,
Right.
Yeah, that's
rental.
true.
but
But if you need
We
more
have
information. or if
25%
you
of the
want me
budget. Do we have any questions or?
What is it, like, say we were to use a community center again, what kind of an expense is that?
Larry took care of that before. We could shop around and see if there's some cheaper places or places that would, I mean, if it's geared towards educators, I don't know if the school would be open to hosting something, but it's something that I'd be willing to ask and look into. If it's geared towards educators, so.
Her original presentation is geared towards educators, but she can also she said that part out if it wants to be more of a community education. It
Well, what
doesn't
are we
need to be geared
thinking?
towards educators.
Do we think towards educators or do we think it'd just be community-based or what are we? What would be our hope, I guess?
Well, like the speaker we have had, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's been kind of the goal that we're providing CEUs for people that are interested, but there's also others encouraged to attend, correct? That's
Yes.
kind of. So, I mean, I think it would be good to encourage, people outside of education too, to get an idea of why having safe spaces is important.
Especially when there's controversy in town now against safe spaces. so.
Right.
Well, and I also think we're not an entity of the school, so I think
Right.
if we're going to host something, it should be geared towards
For
the public
everybody.
and obviously invite educators, but invite
Right.
law enforcement, invite
Right.
Yeah.
medical staff, everyone, I guess would be my thought.
Yeah, I like it to be open to anyone.
So we would want to look at more of a public venue of some sort. So do we think this is something we would like to move forward with hosting?
I really don't see any reason not to. It seems like an incredibly, beneficial opportunity that she has volunteered, her time and
It's really nice that she'll waive her fee.
yeah.
Do we have other discussions surrounding this, or do we have a motion?
What timeline, what are we thinking to try and do that before the end of the year or into earlier next year?
If we have about 25% of our budget left, although we do have the Human Rights Award, but that's,
I think it's going to depend on how much the venue is going to cost and if we can swing it by the end of this year. Otherwise, it might need to wait till
it
next year.
might need to
Okay.
wait depending on funding. But I mean, that's a good thing to bring up at the next meeting too, at that city council meeting, is we'd like to do some of these things, but we're unsure about funding, so. So I think for now, the question is, do we want to look at hosting, and then we can work out the logistics later?
I make a motion that we plan to host an event by this Julie Larkin Spees, Beyond Safe Spaces.
Do we have a second?
I will second that.
All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. So then, I guess on that, the education committee, I think maybe let's have, Wendy, do you want to reach out and get information about her availability? And then I will look into some venue pricing and see, and then depending on kind of how the November thing goes, and we'll look at the budget and go from there. And then at some point, education will probably have to meet to plan that a little more out. Okay. All right, executive committee report. So we have our diversity trainings coming up. Our first one is this Thursday, is that right? Yes, Wednesday. Wednesday. This Wednesday.
We did
At-
that because there's school board meetings on Thursday.
Yep. So
Time?
I think there's 6, is that o'clock? 6 o'clock, is that right?
You're asking me my memory a lot this meeting.
I know, I was gonna bring the flyers and then I forgot. So we did print some flyers that did not come out of our budget, but we did print some flyers. We're hoping to circulate it online too.
Yeah, and it seems to me we went a little after 6 to make sure
It might
people
have
had
been
time to.
7. God, I wish I knew now.
Yeah, because I put 6 on my calendar for me to be there, to bring cookies and whatnot. But I'm going, what, does it start at 6:30 or 7?
I guess we need to double check on that, and I'm hoping maybe I'll have Lisa send the flyer out to the whole group, so
Oh.
then you guys can circulate it to your
Sure,
social circles and stuff too, because we do have a flyer.
good idea.
So, yeah, hopefully we can see some of you there on Wednesday.
And what was the title for the Wednesday's presentation?
You're asking me all these things. I don't remember. I'm sorry.
We
I
have
will
three, we have
get
3
that for
titles
the
I can.
notes.
Okay,
Yes,
sounds good.
I will get that for the notes. All right. Public Relations Committee report. So the first thing to discuss before we even get into the possible response is there had been some confusion, I guess, before about how the Public Relations Committee would work responding. We had originally thought it would be like a very timely conversation and then get those letters submitted. And then just after reviewing kind of open meeting laws and stuff, it sounds like that's not the proper way to go about that. So we need to decide as a group if we want, moving forward, our Public Relations Committee. So this would be the group that responds to like letters to the editor or things in the public that we need a quick response for. If we want to have a committee that meets, sets up a meeting, schedules a meeting, has an open meeting regarding the response, or if we want to designate someone, for example, that could be like the person that writes the letter for a response or whatever that response may be, and then have it sent out through Lisa, and we would vote on if we approve or not of the response. So those are kind of the two options we have. We could have a committee of people, and then in that case, to respond to any incidents or events, we would need to have a meeting. It would need to be scheduled, I believe, 48 hours. Agenda needs to be out, needs to be a public meeting. Public is welcome to attend. Or we can designate someone as our public relations person who could generate that response on their own without having a meeting, and then would need to send it through Lisa to all of the commissioners for approval or non-approval.
I vote for
And-
option B.
So during option B, we would have an opportunity to discuss, I assume.
We would not be able to have a discussion.
okay.
That would be a
It would
violation
just
of
be-
open meeting law. So you would
okay,
either
so
say,
yes or no.
yes, I approve of this response,
Sure.
or no, and if it's no, we would need to table it. If the
Okay.
majority voted no, we would need to table it for the next meeting.
Okay.
Because that discussion needs to happen open to the public.
So it's just flat out yes, no, there wouldn't be no because.
And it would go, yep, and it would go
Okay.
directly to Lisa. It would not go to other commissioners.
Got it. Okay.
Do those two options make sense?
Yes, it makes a little more sense now. I mean, I feel like to have the designated person potentially, if the vote was, the majority agreed with the letter, it would potentially be more timely than trying to do a committee because, you have to have the 48 hours and then you have to have the available space, so it might get to be more than 48 hours.
And that was the original intent of that committee, was to have that rapid response. So, and so far, all of our responses have been letters to the editor. There could be something else moving forward, but that's what it has been. So I guess,
But I thought we used to just have one person that would write the response. We just didn't channel it properly after that. Because Larry used to write a lot of our responses.
did he?
Yes. Or Dan. We pretty much, whoever was, the reason why we had 3 people on public relations was just in case somebody else was busy or,
Okay.
stuff, life happens.
So you're saying that's maybe kind of how it was done, but it just maybe was not approved correctly through the correct channel?
That's
Okay.
exactly kind of what had happened. So
Okay.
there was originally 3 people on that committee.
Okay.
One would volunteer,
Okay.
and
So
they
then
would
we don't have
write,
to have a
and then they
meeting.
would send it to Lisa, and then we were supposed to approve.
Okay.
But,
That's good to know.
things did kind of change and things happened that it didn't always work out that way.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well, and I also feel that if there were ever a situation that was maybe something other than a letter to the editor, the Public Relations Committee could still have a meeting. They could have a committee meeting by doing the letters to the editor type response with the, one person writing and we all vote. That doesn't mean you can't have a committee meeting.
So maybe we want to continue with the committee moving forward. And then, so for example, with this, if we decide that we want to respond to this article, we would designate we'd pick one of the committee members at the meeting that would be the respondent. Is that kind of what we're saying? So we wouldn't really actually be changing anything? Is that what I'm hearing? Am I understanding this correctly?
So you already are, when you have your committee, your public relations committee, you're already following the 48 hours? Is that what you're saying?
So we have, our public relations committee right now is Wendy, and then I think you were on it, right? No, who got on it last time? Someone, maybe it was.
It was Larry, Dan, and I.
I
And
know,
then
but
don't
someone
after that.
volunteered, I thought, at the last meeting to be on it. I have to check my notes.
Well, we were we were talking about with our new
Because there's some turnover.
commissioners, where to put them.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Maybe it was Stephanie.
It's yeah.
I feel like
I
she
don't
was-
remember.
If it wasn't you, then I think it was Stephanie.
I joined education.
Okay, so then I think Stephanie had volunteered to be on the response committee. So do we want to continue having that committee, but moving forward, just a single person would write the response, send it to Lisa, who would disperse it to all of us, and we would vote, yes, we like this response, no, we don't. Correct? So then I don't think we're actually changing anything. We're not getting rid of a committee or anything, so there is no motion to make on that.
Yeah,
We're just
yeah,
clarifying
I was
how
gonna just
we're,
say, I feel like we're
clarifying the
that
process.
How we are supposed to be doing that.
okay, does that make sense? Are there any other questions on the process of that?
Not the
And-
process, but just know that the new policy for the journal is that one person would sign it, not,
Well, and then
Everyone,
maybe that
so-
makes more sense too, because then that one person is the respondent that would sign it, so.
And also not to hit reply all on the emails.
I was just gonna
Yes.
say, we only reply to Lisa then.
Well, and I think Lisa's gonna BCC.
Oh,
so-
so we, even if we're,
Yes, so like, if I vote yes or no, that wouldn't go to you or to
Yeah.
Katie. It would just go to Lisa. Okay, so, having that ironed out, I don't know how many of you saw, there's a link in here to the article from the Star Tribune. I don't know if people had a chance to read this, but, it highlights some of the struggles that people in New Ulm face, certain people in New Ulm face. I asked Lisa to put this in here just to see if it's anything we think that we would like to respond to as a commission, just kind of emphasizing how we as a commission can support the town through this. I don't know if people have thoughts or if you guys have read this article, but if it would be worth the commission kind of stepping up and saying, hey, we recognize this, here are some ways we can help, things like that.
I think it's gonna depend on how the election goes. As to whether we need to respond.
Whether or not we would need to respond.
That's my opinion.
Well, and the other thing to remember is if we do have a response, we cannot have any affiliation one way or another on any candidates, et cetera. So if we were to make a response, it needs to be not favoring any candidates. So,
It
Which,
shouldn't matter about the election, it should matter about, you know,
and I'm not saying we need to respond either, just
that's why I'm wondering if we do, because the gist of the election, or was about the election.
a
too.
lot of it
You
is
know,
about the
that's-
election, so.
I think it might be hard to separate it.
maybe it doesn't need a response.
Yep, and that's fine too. I just wanted to put it on there for us to talk about. So is the consensus moving forward that we do not need a response?
I think being it was in almost a week ago and it's taking so long to get letters printed right now that by the
fair.
time it goes in, our response wouldn't be timely anyways.
Mhm.
But I think we leave ourselves open to responding to future community issues in that area, you know,
Okay.
if need be.
Okay. Any other discussion on that? Otherwise, we don't need a motion. We can move on. All right, legislative update. Kristen's the one that's been talking to Dan, right? No one
Yes.
else has
think
talked to
so,
Dan?
yeah.
Okay, so I don't think we have anything from that. How about Janelle, anything from city council?
no, other than the recent thing about the budget and, someone could go to the meeting on November 1st. And then I did notice, because I've been reading the minutes, and so of course, when I'm looking at the October meeting, I'm seeing September minutes. And they did, when they approved Ally and Stephanie, there was the question, why the high turnover. So I didn't know if anybody, like if you had been, if any commissioner had been approached by the city council about that, or,
I have not,
Okay.
but I would be willing to speak to them about that if they
Oh.
had a question.
but it was just like,
Yeah. Okay,
yeah, but I didn't see anything after that, so.
okay. Thanks, Janelle. All right, other business. The Weaponizing History event has been rescheduled. However, it is not being hosted by the Historical Society, which I believe was part of the concern before. So if you look on here at the link, it is Thursday, October 27th, so it is coming up here this week. I'm unable to attend because of soccer, but I think it would be really nice if we could get a commissioner or two there, just to understand, like, this misinformation is clearly taking hold in our community. And it would be really helpful to have someone there to take notes and so that we understand what is so compelling that so many members of our community seem to buy into this. So, I don't know. It's not an action item or anything, but if we could have a presence there, I think it would be very helpful. Any thoughts or?
I have too much to say that I don't want to right now.
I mean, it's within the rights of whatever group is, I don't even know who's hosting this, but it is valid to host it. And I mean, I think it just is further evidence as to why the work that we're doing as a commission is very important. So,
It's the American Experiment that's hosting it, or that's sponsoring it.
yes, but I believe a local group
Oh, okay.
would have to be pushing for it to be here. So I am glad that it's not through the Historical Society, but I mean, it's just. So do we have any thoughts or anything to say about that? Otherwise, it's not an action item. There's nothing that needs to be done. Do we have any other business that we have missed or need to discuss? All right, then the date of our next meeting is Monday, November 28th. Please let Lisa know if you'll be here. If there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I do have a question. What do we do for our December meeting? Do we just skip
We
December?
generally don't meet in
Okay.
December. We'll talk about
Unless
it at
we
the
have
November.
to.
Okay.
Yep. So we try to get stuff worked out at the November meeting in anticipation that we would not have the December meeting unless it was needed. So. If there's nothing
My
else,
suspicion, but-
do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
We have a second.
I guess I'm the second for the night. I'll second that.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We're adjourned.